Welcome to Startup Grind Sydney! We actually have Daniel Jarosch, I hope I pronounced that right, from Brands Exclusive. The e-commerce world, I guess, in I wouldn't say flash sales, but in the fast sales of fashion and so on. But he'll tell you his story. Anyway, sit back. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them at the end. We'll get started. All right, Daniel, you good at it? We'll just let's hear a little bit about yourself, your background, how you understand you're German, how you got out here, your early background, where you studied.
Oh dear.
Right from the start.
Okay, right from the start.
Yeah.
Can I bend the truth a little bit?
You can.
So, Facebook profile, delete the bad stuff, some hero pictures up there. Right from the start, so I was born in a small town in Germany in 1895. By good fortune, my family sort of was, is quite sort of, my grandmother was English, and 10 uncles, and a lot of them were in Australia, a lot of them were in England, Holland, Poland, so I was exposed to the world quite early, and now I'm a couple of 100 years old, 2 kids.
You aged well.
Thank you. I spent about 20 years of my life in Europe, 16 years in Australia. I'm an Australian citizen by now. Learned the cricket rules, support the Wallabies, and about 4 to 5 years in Asia. So, so being sort of in a global in a global family, so I exposed to the new technologies, communication technologies. So first in Australia, I was still writing letters home and expensive phone calls. So that you're an early adopter, and very quickly the internet came up, and been fascinated by it. So I've become an e-commerce nerd over the time, and so it's become one of my passions. I've worked in the industry for a while, and been very lucky to work with some of the best companies in the space. So from Disney, Sony, eBay, and a number of startups, especially in the Berlin area. And it's probably also, again, from my nature, so if I have a very short attention span, and started a lot of businesses before that, some successfully, some unsuccessfully.
This is in the online domain? Or?
For everything from vinyl, trading vinyl jazz records, to a fraud detection platform, to an opera blog in Europe. But it was in 2007 at eBay when we looked at a number of players in the e-commerce space, and I've just returned from 8 years in Australia to Berlin for the Soccer World Cup, as one does. And but then working at eBay, we were looking at a lot of e-commerce players, and there was one that was particular interesting, which was Montpellier in France. So up till that stage, all innovation came from the US. Not a lot of things came out of France. But it was a phenomenal business, profitable, did $1 billion or $800 million in revenue back then. That's more than I think ASOS does today. And the rumor was that Amazon tried to buy it for $1 billion, and they said no.
Right.
So there was something to it, and we had a very close look to it. It was the first shopping club model, and they existed since 2001. So it is not a new business model we looked at, and it was amazing, from the whole dynamics, to also having an industry value proposition. So it hasn't got just a value proposition to the customer, but it solves a clear industry problem.
So for those of us that don't know what that problem is, what is that problem?
In the fashion space, there's always excess inventory. It is an industry that has inherent capacity planning issues, as you'd call it. So when there's a bad summer, you have a lot of bikinis for sale. When competition forces you to take more stock on, so there's always, it's a very volatile and it's transparent industry. So while it's electronics, a product has a couple of characteristics. So an iPad is an iPad with so many gigabytes and so on and so forth. Fashion is so multi-dimensional. Combined with the volatile industry, there's always the need to turn inventory fast. So a retailer has certain inventory metrics that they need to achieve, so they need to turn the inventory, let's say, 4 to 5 times a year. If they have a slower turning inventory, they need to find a channel that they can clear this inventory to reinvest into faster turning inventory.
Right.
That in a nutshell. The other one was that when you manage a brand, so if you are the owner of a top brand, let's say an Adidas, all you care about is your brand and your price point. So when you want to turn this product faster, you want to put it into other channels, so discount channel, but discounting is poison for any brand. So you want to look for a discrete channel that sells the product under the radar. So you don't want to put it into all the social networks and have it blasted out in the world and Google spiders. So when I Google Adidas sneakers, I get to all these bargain sites that have 80% off, 100% off.
Right.
Who pay you to wear our products.
Yeah.
So Vente Privé in its root was actually B2B company that solved a clear issue for the brand, so it worked with the brands.
Right.
I was talking about myself.
That's all right. Or maybe you can tell me how, did you have a technical background originally? Is that what took you to, like, I guess, working within online commerce? I know you said you did a lot of startups on your own, I guess, at one point.
Not really, but I have a passion for it, so I trained myself in some sort of, when I worked on an Apple computer in 1986, teaching myself Basic and Pascal.
Yeah.
So I always like to sort of look under the hood and sort of learn the principles about it, but I studied business, my sort of MBA in Europe, studied system dynamics in the US, so I got more of a business background, worked with PwC as a consultant for several years, and worked with Deutsche Bank,
Okay.
learning about money.
Yeah. Fair enough. So with regards to brands exclusive, was it tricky implementing that model in Australia, like, you know, with a smaller market opportunity, I guess, or maybe you can tell me otherwise? Was there any hurdles along the way?
There are always hurdles, but I think there are hurdles in any market with any model you implement.
Yep.
So there are some that were specific to us. So we launched Brands Exclusive in 2008. Back then, no one was selling branded products in Australia to the consumer. Yet we had one of the most sophisticated, mature audience, I would say, in the world. It was one of the highest internet penetrations in the world. Australians knew how to do their tax online. I mean, that's unheard of in most countries, that people do their tax returns very simply online. Communication, education, payment, people use their credit cards here, it's just heaven. And there was a clear vacuum of supply of local suppliers.
Right.
So we launched it in 2008. We were the first company in Australia, maybe there was one or two. So Surfstitch was there, a fantastic company with a lot of high customer service standards and levels. So we launched the company then, and
so when you say we, is this your business partner?
Yes,
or?
so it was basically Rolf Weber and I started the company in 2008.
Okay.
And Rolf and I have worked on a number of other projects before and sort of ventures. So that was, I think, our fourth venture together.
And Rolf is still in the company?
Yes, yes. Without him, I wouldn't know what to do.
Fair enough. Okay, so so you launched a product, you launched Brands Exclusive with Rolf, but I remember talking to you outside of this, you did a couple other businesses prior to that, which you started in Australia, namely Spreets.
Spreets was after that.
Oh, sorry.
So Spreets We got to know together with Pollenizer and sort of launched it in a year after, so 2000. So the official launch of Brands Exclusive was May 2009. February 2010 we launched Spreets, and we did Style Trek then about 18 months after that.
Right. Okay, so how would you sort of describe your experience working with an incubator as opposed to starting a business without?
Yes, so the rationale was so the Brands Exclusive is my day-to-day job.
Okay.
But we looked at, so when we launched Brands Exclusive, we saw this new business model coming up, Groupon, which was taking the world by storm, and we thought, oh, there's so many similarities. So we work off a database. We have this whole email thing sorted. So this is easy. They don't even have to send the product out. We have to touch every single product that we sell.
Yeah.
They only sell. So we approached our investors, and they were already invested in a number of these players, so we didn't have to explain it to them. And within 2 weeks, on a handshake with no term sheet, we got funding for it.
Wow.
And then it was about speed, and the reason that we sort of did it together with Pollenizer, because they already built the platform, was ready there to drive, and they did a fantastic job by being in the market so fast that we worked with them. And
so is it Pollenizer provided the technology and you provide the management? Is that what happened?
I think in a true startup, everyone provides some parts of it, but yeah, they built a fantastic platform in record speed. So we built the management team together, and this is sort of when you say incubator. So I believe you have to focus when you build your startup. And you build your startup, you get traction, and you think, oh, now everything is easy, and you see another opportunity. Yeah. And I think that there's a huge risk for being active in the day-to-day management of these startups. So we find the two best co-founders that we can find. So in Spreets it was Justus Hammer, which is an amazing operator, and we put them into the team, and we support them with everything that we have. Right. So we open the doors. It's a self-service. We help them getting their first sort of deals together. We do cross-marketing on the platforms. So we really help them to grow. Okay. What happens then, very quickly after 2-3 months, they grow so fast that they know their business better than us. Yeah. So it's really, we try then to step out of their way and really help them when they need help. But at that time, it becomes really more of a board advisory role where you help them when's best to raise more money, support them in the process and so on.
Right. And so Spreets is now sold, you've sold off, and Style Trek's still going?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. And any background as to an early exit? I don't know, was it an early exit, or was
Spreets
rationale?
Sorry?
What was the rationale behind, I guess, because it's a booming market, and it still is, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah, so it was an extreme, I would say, market at the time. There was so much, it was hyper competitive. Yep. There were 7 players out there very quickly throwing a lot of money in it. Yep. And so, well, execution is key most of the time there, also the capital power. Right. The willingness to take risk. Yes. Was very extreme, and we see it now. I mean, obviously there is now consolidation in the market. No market supports 7 players. Yep. Maybe it supports 3. And then, especially if they all go for the same pie, if they sort of diverse for being sort of for different customer segments with different deals, then so they can coexist really well. But then late 2010, early 2011, we sold the business to Yahoo.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So, specifically about Brands Exclusive, how would you I mean, I know the model was based off Vente Privée from France. How would you explain sort of the day-to-day operations of, as you sort of work with a designer or a brand up until the last touch point with the customer? So what's the process like?
So, I mean, it is obviously the approach. Every company chooses a different approach. we have very consciously taken a relationship approach in everything that we do. So we're not chasing a deal, we're chasing a relationship. So for us, it's not, if I could do a quick deal for you now, but it would actually be bad for you in the long term, we won't do it. So the first thing that we actually did at Brands Exclusive is, we didn't have a lot of money when we started, but we invested first in getting the best buyer in the market that completely understands the fashion industry in Australia, which is very unique. And then build relationships out of this. Because when we started in 2008, the fashion brands were telling us, saying, you can't sell jeans online, you can't sell sunglasses online, they need to try it on. Even shoes, you can't sell shoes online. That was 2009, that wasn't 1800.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of convincing, and the next thing, I can't put my product on there, the retailer's going to hate it. And so all these reasonable concerns, the strong thing was that we had, by 2009, Guild was working in the US, we had Brands for Friends working in Germany, could be VIP in Russia, Fashion and You in India. So there were so many shopping clubs all over the world saying this is a mature industry, this is a respected channel that turns product for you in a discreet manner and so it protects your brand. So we built the relationships, and first obviously what the brands do back then is they give you the crap they can't get rid of. Saying, it's a new model, I don't really trust it, they give you something, and suddenly you sell everything.
Right.
And they go, oops. Yeah? And it worked. And then suddenly they start thinking over time and accept you as a partner. So you earned your trust over time, you delivered on your promises, and these are people that fully understand fashion, the product and the consumer, but they're probably not the experts in e-commerce. And we have a lot of brands that accepted us as being not the advisor, but at least a sounding board in e-commerce, how to build certain channels. So when you have a website, should you do discounting on it, or should you use a discrete channel? Should you do both? How do you do customer acquisition? Building an e-commerce website, everyone can do it, but how do you get traffic on it? So we built this relationship with them over time, which helps us to work with retailers. So we earned their trust, and that helps us to work with the brands in different manners. So there are brands, and let's say where we say, okay, we have an excess inventory issue, and we design a campaign for them. We tell them how much product you need, what the price points are, how much you need to turn, and so on and so forth. And there are other brands who say, we'd like to test this product that we've never sold before, would sell. Can you give us the data analytics before? So we do a lot of data providing to these brands, because they often don't know a lot about their customers, because they live in the real world where you don't have this data. And then we have brands that say, okay, you have a fantastic channel, why don't I produce a fashion line specifically for your channel, and let it be under my brand, but it's a different quality of product, or I put a different brand on it, and so forth. There's all sorts of different brands.
So you specifically let brands produce for your...
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be an excess inventory issue?
No.
Okay.
And then there are brands that are sort of overseas brands that I would like to test the Australian market, but before we go and set up a store network and look for licensing partners, can we run a campaign in Australia to see if this product is accepted?
Okay.
So you work with the brands first to set up a campaign. So it's a long story basically. So you set up a campaign, but once you set up a campaign and you have the campaign objectives set up, you basically the brand sends you a stock list. We agree on the pricing and the volumes on the stock. We get a sample each. We take a photo of each item. We do about 80,000 photos a month. So we touch every single product that gets onto our website. So there's a little bit of a mini supply chain going. Well, it's actually a mini supply chain. It's a high performance photo. So if you imagine, you can do maybe 10 photos a day in a high quality and a low cost. But if you did 80,000 a month, you need to sort of have that sorted. You work with a brand saying, if you have a brand that's targeted at, let's say, the Kate Moss demographic, you have sort of more pale, skinny girl representing that brand. And if it's more, let's say, maternity wear, or sort of men over my age, then you have it differently. And it's actually interesting. We had a photo on it, and I thought, oh dear, why is she on our website? Because I said, no, the brand want her. So this is the models you choose. So we work with,
Right.
we have about 300 models on our lookbox.
Right.
And the brand chooses the model,
Yep.
and then they represent them on our website.
Right.
So do the photos, they're uploaded, everything is retouched, every product is described, pricing double checked, and then it goes up onto a campaign.
How long is that process? Just out of curiosity. Is that
It depends. Obviously, we'd like to. We do it typically in 48 hours.
okay?
However, we have a certain timing. What's best when your brand should run. So if we had 3 underwear campaigns this week,
Yep.
you might prefer that your campaign is next week.
Mm-hmm.
Every day we try to have a roster of sort of a mix
Mm-hmm.
for certain customer segments on our website. So then it gets onto the website, the campaign runs,
Mm-hmm.
we get the orders in, get the cash in, we pay the brand delivers the product into our distribution center in Litken,
Mm-hmm.
goods receiving, so obviously we receive the boxes,
Mhm.
receive the products, distribute it into boxes,
Mm-hmm.
send it out to the customer. Customer has a 30-day no question asked return policy.
Mm-hmm.
We get returns, we check the returns, we book them back in, we transfer the money.
So if there's
the
returns, is it upon brand's exclusive owners to sort of reimburse the customer, or does
Yes.
it go back to the brand?
No, we keep it.
Okay, you keep it.
Yeah.
Okay, and is that just based on the terms with the contract with the brands, or is that you prefer to work with the customer, deal with the customers?
We believe this is the best for the brands and it's the best for the customers, and we've built a business model around it, so
Mhm.
it works.
Okay.
So this is where it's built into the model.
Okay. How do some of the I guess the brick and mortar retailers respond to sort of your business model? I guess, like, do they feel like you're undercutting them? What are some of the feedback?
And that is a very, very good question. And I said in the beginning that the difference is that Vente Privée has an industry value proposition. So they did research, which then was repeated by a website called Buy VIP in Spain and in Germany. And we did the same research here.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically shows that 62% of all people that miss out on a deal go into a store.
Right.
And what has shown that when we send an email out to 2 million people, we get 5,000 orders. But the brand's exposed to how many people? So we know 95% of our retail is still brick and mortar.
Mm.
So you don't actually need these arguments, but we're in the clear demand creation business,
Mm-hmm.
whereas a store is a demand fulfillment business.
Mm.
So with brands exclusive, you don't know what you're getting tomorrow. It's a
Right.
daily surprise. So
Right.
if you had a wedding on the weekend and you need a tie,
Mm-hmm.
don't wait for brands exclusive to have that tie in the
Right.
next 2 days and then get it to you at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a clear difference between the two business models. And the academia is as well, demand creation, demand fulfillment, impulse purchase versus planned purchase. So if you buy a book,
Mm-hmm.
where do you go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
it's search driven. You put the book in and you expect it to be on Amazon that day, Fishbone.
Yeah.
So with brands exclusive, you have a different expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And the first expectation is actually that we entertain you. It's almost like a Facebook profession. That it's a daily destination for you to kill a little bit of your time, to entertain you, to have something relevant for you, and then you buy.
Yeah.
So we compete for your time and attention, and then you buy. Whereas a store used to do it as well, so
Mhm.
they've been very good at it. So you go into a department store, you want to buy a pair of socks, and you come out with a suit. That has obviously, because they want to sort of spend time there,
Mm.
and that's why people want to have stores in there, because that's where they buy. So that's the one reason why we're sort of addressing a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
The same customer,
Mhm.
brick and mortar and us, might buy.
Okay.
A second one is off-price and full price in the real world go hand in hand with geographic co-location. So you have inner city, you have the department store, full price,
Mm-hmm.
and in the outskirts you have the outlets stores.
Mm.
And we know they address different customer segments,
Mhm.
different needs, different desires, different
Mhm.
sort of aspirations. If you had an online outlet let's say you were a department store, you want to discount, or let's say Adidas wants to discount.
Mm-hmm.
If they did it 365 days a year, where I know I can get this product for this price, you undercut, you don't have a separation from the department store.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Flash sales, the offer is only available for 2 days until it's sold out. You don't know when. It's not Google spied it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't tell you when it's on. It's a completely different buying segment. So, whereas if you were discounting online, it would cut through all your customer segment and cannibalize your traditional brick and mortar or traditional retail channels, the full price channels.
Yeah.
That's the lifeline of the brands and retail.
Yeah.
And this is where the word discrete comes in, where the flash sale really addresses a different segment, a different buying situation,
Mm-hmm.
different context, yes, and a different price segment as well.
Yeah.
So the demand creation and sort of the different sort of customer segments, that's...
Okay, so how do you think that affects designers, newer designers, independent labels in the market? Like say, you know, they probably don't have the opportunity to produce at the volumes that you probably require to sell. And secondly, they probably require, you know, 100% or work on specific margins to keep going.
Yeah.
So how does it affect those designers or those independent labels, would you say?
We work actually quite a lot
Yeah.
of them, yes, but there is a minimum volume that we require.
Yep.
However, what we do is we work with targeting.
Okay.
So if we know we don't have a lot of volume available,
Mm-hmm.
we send it to less people.
Right. Okay.
And obviously, this is where every brand is different. So some brands have their own retail outlets, some don't. Some have huge distribution centers, some don't. Some are small designers
Mm-hmm.
that have low volume. So this is where every supplier that we work with is quite unique.
Right.
But we're probably the only one that has a department in this country that is specialized on that.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. How about other verticals? I understand there's living exclusive now. How would you say what prompted you to sort of venture down that path? How do you think the Australian market has responded to that, and how's it going? I guess.
I call living exclusive as a category, really, for us.
Okay.
So from a market perspective, it is a vertical.
Mm-hmm.
About 16 months ago, we saw that 20% of our revenue came from the homewares category.
Yes.
And we wanted to, it addresses separate buying needs, buying situations, and we wanted to sort of give it its own presence.
Yep.
So that it is not as mingled into the other offer. So we're playing around with this, to be honest, because as I said before, you want to be a surprise. So if we were extremely targeted and you knew exactly what would come to you, would lose a lot of our appeal.
Mm-hmm.
By taking living exclusive out, sort of, we took some of the surprises out into a different situation. So we're playing around how would you make these categories work together. You see that that brands exclusive promotes living exclusive promotes brands.
Right.
But it is so big that it needs its own home.
Mm-hmm.
If we call it a vertical, I wouldn't.
Right. Yeah. How would you? I'm sure you're well aware of Fab.com.
Yeah.
What are some of your thoughts? Because I think I read recently that now they're about to turn $100 million this year, if they haven't already. And I think they've only existed for 18 months in the industry. So what are some of your thoughts? Because that's, I guess, there's some parallels with living exclusives and Fab.com.
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, Fab is an amazing company because they started with a very powerful brand ID.
Right.
They knew exactly what they wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas I would say there's a lot of people, let's do a shopping club, but we don't really know what we stand for.
Mm-hmm.
I think Fab is very clearly in the design segment and set new standards on that. And they were so confident in it that they were actually blogging so openly what they're going to do next. And I found that very impressive. They were copied by some people. They said, let us copy. The people will understand the difference, and they basically succeeded.
Yeah.
They sort of entered the market with a very, very interesting sort of product segment, so the design product, which is very aspirational.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they need to grow their business, and I wouldn't be surprised if they need to sort of get into fashion, which they're already trying in sort of certain niche areas and stores. So they probably have to become, to make the investors happy, a bit more mainstream in some elements.
Yeah.
But I think at the moment it is one of the prime examples of a fantastically executed shopping club
Yeah.
in the US. Similar, I mean, like the likes like a Zuli, Lee or Guild,
Yeah.
they have a very clear understanding what they stand for.
Yeah. Okay. When you say shopping club, I understand you have to register to view the deals, I guess.
Yeah.
How do you think that, I mean, when you're trying to build traction, when you're trying to build sales, do you think that works against it, or is that more of is that a trick in terms of, like, you know, getting the customers, acquiring the customers? How would you say that works?
It's not a trick to acquire the customer, but it is a way to scarcity.
Okay.
It's artificial scarcity. There's two ways to make a party.
Okay.
One is to invite everyone,
Mm-hmm.
have the biggest hall in the country and free beer for everyone, and the other one is to have a very strict guest list.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who's coming.
Mm-hmm.
As said, the shopping club model was a proven model. It's now 11 years old.
Yeah.
And it has always been like this, and this is why we adopted this approach.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there's a clear reason for it. It's a discrete shopping channel.
Mm-hmm.
So the brand wants it to be under the radar. They don't want their brand to be screamed from the rooftop 80% off, cheap, 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 cheap.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want this. So this is where the registration part comes from.
Right.
If it's going to stay that way, so we see some companies like Privalia is moving the login later in, so to view the products you can actually get into the website, and when you want to press click, you need to register.
Yeah.
eBay was like this from day one, so Amazon so the registration part is nothing new. Then there is obviously the business model is built around database model.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having to acquire every customer new every single time, you acquire the email, and then you sort of have a relationship with them,
Mm-hmm.
which enables you to spend less money on customer acquisition, SEM, SEO,
Mm-hmm.
and enables you to learn a lot about your customer,
Right.
so that you actually can serve them a lot better, you can market to them more efficiently, and so on and so forth. So this is where the registration model comes from.
Cool.
It's been interpreted by the shopping clubs in all different forms.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Fantastic. Going back to, specifically about yourself, you were nominated earlier this year by Ernst & Young as an Entrepreneur of the Year, and then last year you took out the Rising Star from Deloitte as an Entrepreneur of the Year. Does some of these accolades sort of quantify your success to date, or are you still trying to build on I guess your personal goals? Like, what would you say?
So last year the company won the Rising Star Award. So this year we actually won the Deloitte Fast 50.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think we're going at a pace where we don't really have the time to smell the roses yet, but when these things come along, they make you stop.
Yeah.
And often you see it on the smiles of the people around you that this is something really great.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing recognition for the team. I mean, this is where, as an entrepreneur, you take your satisfaction out of creation of something.
Yeah.
By someone giving you the prize, which is nice.
Yeah.
I think there are other things that are a lot nicer.
Yeah.
I mean, having the first campaign on Brands Exclusive, having the first customer signing up.
Yeah.
And there were euphoria when the first person really signed up to our platform.
Yeah.
As well. And then, I mean, there are so many of these milestones.
Yeah.
But it is nice to have this external then sort of recognition of it. And it's also something that speaks to a lot of people that weren't there when the first customer came on.
Yeah.
And so on.
Have you had some of those loyal customers over the years still there? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next to my wife.
Fantastic.
in the top 10.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's shift the conversation to startups. Probably a lot of people in this room are probably working on a startup of some sort. What would you say have been the challenges or are challenges founding a business in Australia, an online business?
I found it hard that there were little people to talk to at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't. There was a scene, but I found the networking in other places of the world was a lot easier.
Yep.
And that was then. So that has changed a little bit over time. So more of these events where you just get together and exchange ideas openly. You know, so saying how big I am. There was one thing. Then infrastructure was a complete nightmare. I mean, this was to get a merchant account from a bank took us 6 weeks. There's just postal provider connections. There was a lot of things where it was just a lot harder.
Mm-hmm.
The employee share option scheme in Australia is a nightmare to attract talent, and I mean I don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of sort of infrastructural things that make occasions.
Yeah.
So, and other countries have other sort of disadvantages, have other issues.
Yeah.
So, probably the other two in that phase is sort of every smaller company that sort of aims for scale in this country is the high wages and rents.
Yeah.
With a limited market size.
Yeah.
Where when you know that other countries have 10 times the people, half the wages.
Yeah.
Shipping from overseas is the same price as shipping within Australia, and rents are the fragment. So you suddenly see there are some structural disadvantages for some businesses. So if you have an inventory-based business, then it affects you more. So given that we touch every single product, and so it affects us more. If you're a purely digital product, you might not worry about it.
Okay. What's your customer mix? Local Australia versus international?
We only sell in Australia and New Zealand.
You only sell in Australia?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's for what are the reasons behind that? In terms of, I guess you want to grow slowly, or is it a scaling issue, or what is some?
We want to. Cross-border trade is a completely different game.
Yep.
Starts with different licensing for different brands. So the license holder for brand A here is a different one than another segment. We wanted to focus on one market and do it right, rather than be in 2 or 3 markets and be sort of average and have a lot of friction in it. So it was for us a motivation to be excellent in what we do here. And the Australian market is big enough. I mean, this is where, and Australia and New Zealand are 2 fantastic segments. It is for us that ships every product ourselves. So if you had a digital product that hasn't got the supply chain to it, you might think differently about it. So then you might have a global approach straight away.
Okay, fantastic. Speaking of funding, I know you said you started Brands Exclusive with not much money.
No.
How important was that, I guess, at the start, or like, you know, what were some of the hurdles that you sort of faced, I guess, trying to raise funds, if you did raise funds, or now that you've done it a few times with different businesses, as a startup, as a first-time entrepreneur, what are some of the tips you could give us?
So the first funding came actually from Rolf and us, and we paid ourselves with no funding until basically there was no other money left in the bank.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, it's crazy how the timing went at the time. But then we raised sort of a small seed round from high net worth in Europe that understood the business model. So the good thing was that in Europe we didn't have to explain the business model to anyone, because they exposed it, they knew it. It's like them, but in Australia.
Right.
And then about 18 months later we did a small A round, again with two super angels, you would call them, or mini VCs. So it's Klaus Hommels out of Switzerland, who's again, he's a fantastic operator. He sort of has an amazing approach to invest into startups. So he was invested into the Skypes and Spotify's and Facebooks of this world. Having him on the board obviously was important for us to say, is the recognition, but also he was already invested into other shopping clubs around the world, and we only got the best sort of references. So that helped us to be connected to these guys and made them capital raise. And then having proven with Brands Exclusive the streets that we're working, then it obviously opens doors. Times have changed, so e-commerce has become very sexy in Australia. So there are a lot of people that like to invest into the space. Obviously, there are still more people that, in the past in Australia, why invest into e-commerce when you can invest in real estate or mining? A lot safer bet. But this is changing, and a lot of people want to sort of be part of it, and they're learning about it. They're learning about the portfolio approach and seed investing, that it is a very high risk investment. They learn about the rules of the different stages from A, C, B, and C rounds, and what the requirements are there. And that makes it easier here as well. So I think our experience from back then, 3 years ago, is already dated. So I think there's a lot of people in the market here that like to invest. And I think it's not a bad environment.
Fair enough. How would you say, what would you describe the talent in Australia, as in the technology to acquire new talent? Is that a challenge for you? I know that the pool's a lot smaller states compared to somewhere in Silicon Valley, but is it easy to acquire talent or good talent?
Yes and no. I mean, to acquire good talent is always hard, not only in technology. We always seem to get good people. I think this is again sort of so one of the things that I believe we've done well in Brands Exclusive, we always hired an absolute rock star first. And in the IT department, so Daniel Reyes, that sort of managed to attract talent partly in a junior level and train them, and everything you need to know from agile development to the Python, Django things we do. It is hard. Obviously, we code in the same sort of frameworks that, let's say, Google does around the corner, and they obviously have an attraction to some and the volume. But I think it's always hard. If you pay well and you have a great culture, you get them. And this is where. But the hard thing is obviously the speed you need to get them. So until we got our first person, it took really a while until we felt comfortable. If you want to ramp up quickly and you need to have 10 people by tomorrow, then it will be a lot harder.
Fair enough. So where do we see Brands Exclusive in the next few years or next 3 years, if you like? What are you thinking of? Acquiring other competitors out there, or what's some of the things on the horizon?
World domination. Don't know. To be honest, we live in an environment where I wouldn't dare, and this is the thing, whenever investors come, they want to see a 3-year plan. And it's like rolling the dice. We don't know what's happening in 3 years. The environment's moving so fast. If we were going to build a 3-year plan, it would be the only plan that's wrong. And it would set up us for complete disaster. So what we're living by is, I'm a great believer into the lean startup philosophy or approach, that we look at it probably in a 12-month cycle, but in 3-month steps on a company-wide level. So we see obviously that there's a lot to do. I mean, I see that our industry is at its beginning. I mean, in 10 years' time, we'll look back and we'll be laughing. We'll be laughing what we've done with data. We'll be laughing what we've done with mobile. We'll be laughing what with social. Well, it's really the Stone Age. So this is where we're thinking, okay, we're privileged to be at the time now where we can try certain things, and if one of them lifts off of
Yeah.
the 10 things release next week,
Mhm.
we're done. So this is the approach we're taking. So
Yeah.
obviously the 3 segments that I just mentioned is where I see a lot of the music will come out of.
Yeah.
I see some players are doing it well, some players are doing still in the old-fashioned way,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not thinking acquisitions or,
Fair enough.
but we might acquire.
Yeah. Okay. So before I put the questions to the audience, I just want to run through some flash questions, just flash questions that you can possibly answer, so we get to know you a bit better. So what are some things outside of e-commerce that you like enjoying spending your time in?
Field hockey and surfing.
Fair enough.
Is it flash? Or
Flash, yeah. Something we don't know about you.
I have 2 sons. One's 5 months old and one is 3 years old, and they kill my sleep. They rob my sleep. I'm sleep deprived.
Won't take up too much of your time then. Favorite holiday destination?
South Coast, Australia, Bendigo.
Yeah. Internationally?
I
I guess.
love Portugal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
something that place there.
And the apps that you use the most on your phone?
Brand's exclusive app, obviously, where I use it every day. I have to look at it actually. I think I use the weather app.
Yeah.
No, with 2 kids,
Yeah.
what you put on them every
Yeah.
morning.
Fair enough. All right. We'll put it to the audience. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Pressure.
Early on, Damien, by the way, earlier on, like before the start, we were talking outside, and you made this statement which is kind of interesting. You said we were talking about funding, and the amount of money that some companies attract, and you said money is poison.
Yeah. So as I said, the first 6 months we lived off our savings, and it was typically that one of us actually had to do some jobs to get money in to pay the rent, and it really forces you to focus on the price. Then we raised a small seed series, and it forces you to be agile and follow a lean approach that you can't take too bigger bets. We really don't know what there will be in 6 to 12 months. So, and the agile approach is this constant testing, evaluating, do it new, do it better, and that's typically what you do when resources are scarce. You're probably my age, so we know what happened in 2001 when there was a lot of money out there, and you had a lot of young people out there spending a lot of money, and you actually don't know what's working then. You suddenly see, oh, we do this, and yeah, the business going up, but you don't know out of the 5 things which actually driving your top line or your bottom line. So when at times revenue is easy, when it comes to profitability is really hard. When it comes to showdown, you need to deliver profitability. You need to cut off 3, and you don't know which one. It is the attitude you actually motivate your staff. Money is important, but they need much more than that. They actually need a purpose, they need a mission to be in there, and that's daily work. That's what people forget when they sort of think, oh, money out there, it solves the problem. Money is great, it fixes. Why are they not spending it on what's really important? But yeah, I'd like to have more money, always, but in the end it's actually good to be focused.
Okay, thank you.
Paul?
So you do the you do the shopping club, right? You've done the group buying. What's your opinion on the shopping festival? So the Cyber Monday, and we had our Click Frenzy. What do you think? Is it gonna take off next year? Is someone gonna do it properly? Or?
Yeah, it will lift off. I mean, the thing is, Grant Arnott from Power Retail, who did it, he did a fantastic job by bringing a whole industry concept to Australia in an agile way. Yes, he failed in some areas, but he succeeded in probably most of them. He got so much PR out of it. It will be big next year. If it's sort of the click frenzy of it's just a Cyber Monday and everyone does it, we don't know. But I think kudos to someone who takes the risk and out of nothing in a real sort of lean way launches this year. I feel a bit sorry about the beating he got from the media, because obviously some things didn't work and there was a downtime. But if you have a startup business, daily work, we know it, and the last thing you need is some people that have never worked in the industry beat you up on it. It shows also a lot of players that want to get into the space that it's not that easy. So a lot of traditional players think, oh, we just do it this way and this way, that this learning is normal in the process. I think there will be an industry Cyber Monday. Maybe there's also a Valentine's Day, Flowers Day, and a Mother's Day, Chocolate Hearts Day, and whatever drives consumption will be invented by.
Are you looking to get into the space yourself?
We sort of, we work with the suppliers of these retailers already. So in the end, we have a day like this every day.
But to make a big song and dance about it and so.
We do. So we have one of the biggest bridal and wedding events in Australia. We have a Mother's Day event. So we are eventing, and that comes back to competing for people's time and attention. That we create events around themes. And this is also why we sort of launched cross-basket shopping, which is, you're probably not familiar with the shopping club, but often you can only buy from one brand. So if there's Adidas and Puma, you can buy only from Adidas. And there's only 3 or 4 shopping clubs in the world where you can buy off different campaigns and get it dispatched in one box. And we sort of launched that in Australia, and that enables us to launch an event. So when you have a bridal event where you get everything from the hairdo to the dress to the champagne to the shoes, you buy from different brands and you put it in one box and you curate it and send it out. So I think these events are more to come, but this click frenzy and Cyber Money, it was crazy what the media sort of made with it. So it's good. Anyway.
Can I ask another quick question? Sorry. Gifting is pretty big right now, so gift cards and gift baskets.
Yeah.
Wrap is doing like quite a good job. What do you sort of see in the space, or are you keen on the space, or?
I think it's a super interesting space, because it solves a clear a consumer need. It's your birthday and 10 friends want to collect. How annoying is that to collect?
Yeah.
I buy the present and I need to chase 10 friends to give me that $10. If you could streamline that, that's fantastic. It requires for people to change behaviors, so maybe people like the annoying process of the real world. So it's and that's a funny thing. We knew that the mobile phone was going to change everything 10 years ago, and then it came Mr. and so this is going to change everything. So it's a timing thing. Gifting will be big, and there are a number of players that have very good products. I like the wrap product, like the Flick gift product. How it ties into the social. So I think it's good.
Cool. Anyone else?
So during the early startup days, how did you make the decision on what bit of technology to build and which to buy? Was that a challenge, or did that play out automatically?
I have a business background, so my background wasn't really technology, but the way Brands Exclusive was built, so we bought a development house in Istanbul. So the business partner we worked with, Zina Afra, called Marcafoni at the time, or Akinon. And they specialized, they were one of the best Python coders. I'd call it in Europe. So Turkey is quite a unique, so teaching at the universities, with university lecturers there. And they built the platform on Python. So Python has a lot of advantages, I was told at the time, but it's highly scalable. So it won't fall over at the click frenzy day. It is, you don't get spaghetti ball code and all these sort of things that I was told later on that helps you. It's harder to get developers, harder than to get developers now, but to make the end result is a lot more robust. And that platform was built in Istanbul, so I spent 6 months between Istanbul and Sydney at the time. And then we brought it into 2 markets, into Turkey and into Australia. So the technology question was more driven about the expertise that we had there. And so that's what we then built in-house. The shopping club workflow is so unique that it is very hard to get any off-the-rack software. So we are not a retailer. The way we work to support, you do 80,000 photos, means you have 15,000 different products coming to the warehouse every month. There's a person receiving it and doing goods check that's never seen the product. So we basically built our own ERP system in Python. Now, this is our core, this is what we do, but then there was a question in 2008, are we going with Microsoft Exchange Server and Google apps? And thank God. Yeah? We obviously then went with Google, and a lot of cloud, we went with SASU for accounting, not with MyOB, it's a small company then. So that's where we sort of adopted a lot of off-the-rack best-of-breed little products, or not so little products, but that's been a fantastic decision. And there's always this inner desire to build it yourself because you think it's going to be the best, and you need to then overshoot a deadline and say, well, we didn't do it at the time, to come to the acknowledgement, okay, we should have external development here. It's largely driven now by our tech guys, so Daniel Reyes and the team.
How do you manage returns? I know it's probably a more specific thing, but
Yeah.
especially given that it's just a bang sort of sale,
Yeah.
do you just factor in the cost of returns into the cost of the business model, or do you then refurbish and put out returns out again?
Both. So obviously we factored in the business model.
Yeah,
Our CFO wouldn't let us just ignore returns.
Yeah, no,
Like
sure.
some.
No, I meant factor it in that you just have that much wastage.
We have some wastage, yeah.
Yeah.
But we also have other secondary channels that we can sort of push products through, and then obviously we also work in a global sort of network of shopping clubs, so we have other ways of clearing stock.
Okay.
Couple more questions?
Yeah, how far do you work in your scheduling with some of the brands that you work with? You know, like internally in your business, are you, say, working 30 days ahead and you've got your schedule out for every day, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we have an 8 weeks pipeline that we know sort of per day what's happening on that day. And we have brand partners that we engineer product with, so we know we have a campaign with you in 3 months and 6 months and 9 months. And then there are others that say, oh, we have an emergency, can you help us next week? So the majority, I'd say, is planned. We have very good planning accuracy for the next 8 weeks. And then obviously it becomes more tactical. And then there's probably 20% or 30% is really fixed campaigns that we have.
Lucky last?
Yeah, just with obviously you said at the start you had limited funding, and when you got the funding you bought the development company in Turkey. Did you need a minimum viable product or some type of technology offering before you got the funding? Did you need to build the website first or have something there?
That funding was separately, so that was done with the SINA from Turkey. But these guys were absolute experts in launching a product so super fast you couldn't imagine it. So they were one of the fastest guys I've ever seen. So they built the MVP so quickly. By the time you saw it, they already staged further on. They're very pragmatic there.
All right, I think we'll have to wrap it up. But thanks everyone for coming down. Does everyone want to give a round of applause again?
Thanks for joining us on Startup Grind Sydney!